going to record another of these Unhaul videos that I've been trying out. This is devoted to graphic novels and comics. I worked at a used bookstore. That's not true. I worked at a regular bookstore. Sorry, I was just talking about used bookstores. I worked at a bookstore for quite a while, almost a decade. And actually, I guess it was a decade if you count the different locations I worked at. Anyway, I picked up during that time a lot of graphic novels because I had a substantial discount. I have moved with those graphic novels. Some of them have moved with me from Maine to a place in Northern Virginia, to a different place in Northern Virginia, to another place in Northern Virginia, and then all the way to DC. Some of them have only done those last two stops. I don't want to move them again, and a lot of them I hadn't gotten around to reading, but I've been trying to read through various graphic novels and move them on, or reread ones that I had read before and see if I really need to hold on to them. Some of them I have already passed. I've passed a lot of them on to friends' kids, to little free libraries, etc. But this is a stack that I will be taking to a used bookstore in the couple of months, probably. We're going to do a road trip and we'll rent a car, and on the way we'll stop at a used bookstore and I will get rid of these. I just want to take a look at what they are. Old City Blues, I think this is volume 1 and 2. Yeah. Nope, never going to say it, so I'm not even going to try. I liked this, actually. I liked this quite a bit, but I'm just never going to read it again. Yeah, it was cool. Kind of cyberpunky, but I'm never reading it again, so that can move on. Guardians of the Galaxy Legacy. This was my first time reading anything from the Guardians of the Galaxy. I enjoyed it. I always preferred my comics cosmic, and so I thought that was cool, but I went back and reread this, and honestly, it didn't really do much for me, and I have no reason to hold on to it, so that'll be moving along. Radioactive Man. I enjoyed a lot of the Simpsons comics that I've read. I've picked up some on Free RPG Day. My goodness, my brain is mush today. Free Comic Book Day. I bought a few trades. I actually, for a while I was working at the bookstore, we were getting in individual issues of it, and I was getting and reading those and enjoying them. So I picked up this Radioactive Man collection, and it was fine. There were things about it I really enjoyed. It's a lot of send-up of the classic superhero comics, early Superman and a lot of that kind of stuff. It was fine. It was enjoyable. There are actually some really good bits in it, but overall, it was all right. I'm never going to read it again. It's a beast of a volume, so it takes up a lot of space on the shelf. So that's going along. Also, this I know has moved with me a couple of times, and I don't want to move it again. Manhattan Project. This was one that I wasn't really... I picked it up, and then I kind of lost interest in it, but when I reread it again, I thought it was actually pretty intriguing. I don't know if I'll ever get around to reading further. I think the series is finished. A lot of Image comics are limited runs, which I think is one of the reasons why they're typically better than a lot of other things, because they tell the complete story and then they have the decency to end. But I'm not sure if and when I'll get around to reading the rest of this series. But it was cool. It was definitely worth reading, but it will be moving along. Tarzan the Untamed. This was fine. It's like classic Tarzan comics. This is the Jerry Carr sketchbook, which is actually signed. Jerry Carr was kind of an associate of a friend of mine, and I used to see him at comic conventions all the time. It's some cool cheesecake art. I enjoy it, but I only have so much room on the shelves. And same here with Crypto Zoo Crew. This I also picked up, I think, at a convention from Jerry Carr, and it's fun. It's enjoyable if you enjoy this kind of like send up of the old, like, Tarzan and all the other kind of cheesecakey, Sheena, that kind of thing. But I only have so much room, and I don't want to move them again. I'm not moving anytime soon, hopefully, but I am thinking about the future. It's just some Tarzan fiction with some art. I like the art. There is some comic strip stuff in the back. It's enjoyable, but that's fine. Also, I kind of, especially last year, rereading and finishing finally the Mars series from Burroughs, and I really think that kind of killed it for me. I think that might have been the end of my Burroughs love. I think it's, yeah, yeah, hugely important to me as a youngster, but I just don't think I'm there with Burroughs anymore. Depths, Paul Chadwick. I enjoyed this, but I'm never going to read it again. Pardon me while I cough. Excuse me. Tail end of a cold. Thank goodness it's over. Ignition City. This was, Warren Ellis. Some alternate World War II, if I remember right, or something to that effect. I don't know. I read through it. It was okay. This is certainly the kind of thing I like, but I didn't really especially care for this. Voyages. This was just fun. Sci-fi. Perfectly enjoyable, but also I'm never going to read it again. This Depths I had actually read twice. It is cool, but again, never going to read it again. Punisher, Daredevil, Spider-Man, Iron Man Noir. These were fine. I think Punisher and Daredevil were the two that actually really felt like noir. These were really more pulp. They were fine. It was an interesting experiment. Some of the art is good in some of these. Some of it is just not to my liking. But again, I read them when I first got them, and then I reread them, and I feel like I've gotten what I'm going to get out of them. So, Apocalyptic Girl, I liked this quite a bit. I thought it was a neat little story. Again, though, I'm never going to probably read it again, but I may take this to the shop. I may pass this on to somebody with kids. I don't know. I don't remember. I feel like this was not super adult, but I don't know. We'll see. Battling Boy. It's kind of wild. Like the art style is not a style that I would say that I like, and yet I thought it worked here. And then The Rise of Aurora West. This is like a tie-in. I don't know if there's more Battling Boy stuff in the Battling Boy universe. This Paul Pope, I think, is behind a lot of this. I don't know if there's more. I liked this. Again, I enjoyed it, but I've read it now. It's time to move on. Lock and Key, I enjoyed quite a bit, and I wanted to read the rest of the series, but never got around to it. And that train has sailed. I did give this a reread, but I just couldn't get super excited about it. I didn't watch. There was a TV series that I think didn't last more than like a season or two, but I never read it. We read this in a comic book reading group that I was in. And I remember really enjoying it and thinking I would go on, but I didn't, and I'm not going to at this point. Low, I was reading so many sci-fi comics from Image at the time, and this was really neat. It was very depressing. It has a lot of cool stuff. I think this might be one that's finished. I just don't know if I really want to go and read it. I think part of it is it's certain darker or grimmer stories are not really resonating with me right now, I think, because just the state of things. So, yeah. Wasteland, I was very excited about when it first came out. I think this was back when I was in Maine still. So I think this has moved with me several times. I am a sucker for apocalyptic stories. I always was, going back to, I watched, the Mad Max movies when I was too young and loved them. And, it's my kind of thing, but also I've read them now a couple of times. I'm not going to read them again, so it's time to move on. Trees, I know I read. I remember nothing about. Maybe it was good, maybe it wasn't. I feel like it was interesting, but I remember nothing about it, so I don't need to read that again. That was Warren Ellis. And I'm just getting rid of this for reasons that are obvious. I will not be reading that again, ever. So that's this little unhaul of comics and graphic novels. And we'll see. I feel like the used bookstore doesn't really give very much for these, so some of them maybe I'll rethink and put some of them in little free libraries instead of trying to sell them at used bookstore. But anyhow, until next time, take care.